good evening, Revolve. It's good to see you and be giving the message to you. I guess I'm not really seeing you physically, but it's good to be here with you. I want to encourage you that even though we can't be here in person, we can still be a connected family. And I want to encourage you to find different ways that you guys can still talk to each other, maybe play games with each other, like Xbox Live or PlayStation, whatever you prefer. Find ways that you can still connect and be together, even if you can't be together in person. Because that's what we want to do here at Revolve. Even though we can't meet in person when I'm talking to an empty room, we can still be connected and still learn together. So the way I want tonight to look is I'm going to deliver the message to you. We're still going to have a game. I'll still give announcements. We'll have the lesson and then we'll be done, but you'll already be home. You won't have to drive home. And as I talk, there will be certain times where I'm going to encourage you to leave a comment in the section below. And at those times, I want you to talk about something that relates to the question I'm asking. I want to encourage you to stay away from saying stuff that has nothing to do with what we're talking about, because I can honestly say that this is an opportunity for us to learn together, to grow with each other, and I want us all to have the best opportunity to learn tonight. So when I give you those options, make sure that you're saying something and leaving a comment that's relevant to what we're talking about, that has something to do with the message. So for our announcements, we really just have one. CIY Believe has been canceled, obviously. If you were going to CIY Believe, you probably know that. I've already told your parents, but I wanted to tell you. We're not going to be able to meet because they canceled, to make sure that everyone stays healthy. So what we're going to plan to do instead is we're going to find a different special event that we can do together to still be able to celebrate and be with one another. But that'll be at a later time. So just be looking out for that announcement to come. So we're going to start tonight the same way we would start any other night. We're going to start with a game. Now, obviously we can't play a game with each other in person. However, we can still play a game together over the internet. So the game we're going to play is this. We're going to play at-home scavenger hunt. Obviously by the title, you probably know what you're going to do. I sent an email of a PDF file to your parents that has the rules and the list of things you need to find on it. And what you're going to do is you're going to be divided into teams, and the team is just the household, right, that you're in. The people around you right now watching the video with you, that is your team. And your goal is to get as many things on this list as you can. If you look, there's a top list and a bottom list. The top list is normal, average, everyday things that you probably have in your house. And those are worth 5 points. The next list at the bottom is a bonus list, and those things are things that maybe you don't have. If you'll notice, one of those things is toilet paper. All of the items on that list are worth 10 points. So the top list has a total potential of 60 points, and the bottom list has a total potential of 50 points. So obviously it might be an advantage for you to find the stuff on the bottom list because there are much less things that have almost the same point value for their total. I'm going to give you guys 10 minutes to do as much as you can, and the team that has the most points at the end of everything, that will be the winning team. But here's the catch. Your parents have to send the point total to me for it to count. I don't want it in the comments below. I want a text from your parents. If your parents don't send a point total into me, then it doesn't count. So I'm going to count down from 5, and then you'll go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. that's it. Time is up. Thank you for playing this game with us. I want you to put in the comments below how you think you did, not how many total points you thought you had, but how well you think you did. If you think you did a good job or a bad job or a kind of average job, I want you to say that in the comments below. Now we're going to do the lesson part of this evening. If you were here 2 weeks ago, we started a new series called Others First. And the idea of this series is we're trying to figure out these different ways that we can love other people. Because when Jesus was asked what the greatest commandment was, he said to love God and love other people. And he said all of the other commands, all the other things that we're supposed to do depend on this one thing, loving God and loving people. So if we don't love other people, then we can't really love God. Jesus says that without loving people, you can't really love God. So we're going to try to figure out the way over the next couple of weeks that we can best love people, love the people around us. Last week, we talked about the fact that everybody's made in the image of God. And maybe it would look different, the way we treat people would look different if we saw everybody as made in God's image. And the question for you is, would the way you treat people be different if you saw everybody as made in God's image? I hope for you, if your answer to that question was yes, then you took our challenge seriously. Our challenge was to pray every single day that you would pray and say, God, give me eyes to see others the way you see them. God, help me to see people the way that you do. And if that made an impact for you, if you were able to do that for at least a week, if you prayed that prayer every morning, I want you to say yes or no in the comment below. And if you weren't able to, hey, that's fine. You can start now. You can start doing that. Tonight, the title of our lesson is Big Enough to Stand. So to start the lesson, I want you to share your biggest pet peeve with me. That one thing that disgusts you every time you see it or hear it. It just gets under your skin. It makes your skin crawl. You get goosebumps because it's so disgusting to you. What is the biggest pet peeve for you? Take 30 seconds and comment in the section below and tell me what your biggest pet peeve is. So, if you said something like nails on a chalkboard or really bad drivers, something like that, I'll accept those. Those are pretty good answers, and I tend to agree with you, right? Nails on a chalkboard, it just kind of makes your skin crawl, and really bad drivers are really frustrating, especially when you're the one trying to drive behind someone who's a bad driver. But the ultimate worst thing in the world, the thing that is worse than anything that you guys said in the comment section below, there is one thing that's worse than all of that, and that is when people eat with their mouth open. That is the absolute worst. That is my pet peeve. I can't stand it when people eat with their mouth open. And maybe for you, you don't even really think about it. Like there's someone chomping away beside you and it doesn't bother you at all. Like you don't even care. But for me, man, I can't stand it. Like it's just every time someone eats loudly, it's just I can hear it as like a megaphone right in my ear. It's awful. Maybe you think that that's kind of weird. But before you label me as a weirdo, there's actually an article that's found on time.com. You can look it up just if you want to verify that I'm telling the truth. And it talks about how this is a legit disorder, right? They call it misophonia. And there's actually a lot of people who struggle with it. In a report published by the journal Current Biology, scientists they did scans of the brains of people who struggle with this, and they found that there's actually different brain activity in that person's brain when they hear these trigger sounds, these different like chewing out loud and stuff like that. Basically, their brain fires in a way that it's abnormal in their emotional control center, which makes it so they get overly angry. They have a heightened physiological response, meaning their body actually reacts to this thing, and they can have an increased heart rate and sweating. So, I tell you all that to say that my pet peeve is something that's actually medically diagnosable, like a doctor can tell me that I have this. So what's your excuse for the thing that bothers you? Mine, it's medical, I can't help it. That's all I'm saying, okay? But in all seriousness, tonight, we're talking about the thing that truly makes you disgusted. The thing that goes on in our world that really breaks your heart. What's something for you that when you see it happen, when you hear it happen, when you see it on the news or you hear it on the radio, maybe in the car in the morning as you're going to school, what is that thing that gives you a pit in your stomach, that makes you feel sick? That one thing that every time it happens, you question, man, how can this be a reality? How is this something that actually happens in our world? Like, what is that one thing for you? What breaks your heart? Well, for me, something that breaks my heart is the fact that so many students, middle school and high school, they're so broken inside, right? They have this feeling of like they don't measure up. They're not enough. You know, we've talked about this before, and your generation is the most stressed out, anxiety-filled, and depressed generation in all of history. And that's a problem, and that breaks my heart, right? It breaks my heart to know that there are so many of you out there who don't feel like you're enough. You feel unloved, you feel disconnected, and that breaks my heart. When I think back to my time in high school, you know, I realized that I often felt this way about myself, right? I had these kind of thoughts and feelings about who I was. I'm not a huge guy now, but when I was in high school, I was a very skinny guy, and I got made fun of a lot for it. In fact, almost every single class period I went to, of every single day at school, someone said something about me being thin. And what happened is I internalized it a lot. I didn't let people know on the outside that it bothered me, but on the inside it tore me apart. And what I did was I would tear myself apart about something I couldn't really control. I mean, I didn't want to be small. I didn't want to be thin. I was a high school boy. Like, I wanted to be big and strong so that I could impress the ladies, right? Like, I wanted to be a manly guy. And I tried everything. I tried everything I could to try to gain weight. There was this person who told me that, you know, if you eat a tub of ice cream at midnight every night, that'll help you gain weight. And I did that. No lie. I ate a whole entire tub of ice cream every single night to try to gain weight, and nothing happened. I had this negative view of myself because I thought that I was less than I was supposed to be. As I tried to transition to seeing the way that God saw me, I realized that my worth isn't how people viewed me. My worth is how God sees me. And that's something I want you to know tonight. Maybe for you struggle with the way you look, or you struggle with the way you feel, you struggle with some sort of insecurity about something that you think that you're not good at, or whatever it is for you. I want you to know that God sees you as a masterpiece. He sees you as a finished work. I know that your doubts about yourself are definitely real, right? The stuff you're feeling about yourself, you're not making it up. You feel that way, but just because you feel something doesn't mean it's true. And the truth is this: God sees you as valuable and beautiful, and I don't want you to miss that tonight. I want to start off by telling you that truth. This makes me think of a story in John chapter 8, and the story goes like this. Jesus, he's teaching again, and there's a large crowd of people who surrounds him, and he's teaching in the temple. And he's teaching them about all these great things, and then right in the middle of it, these Pharisees, they bust into the crowd, and they throw this woman at the feet of Jesus, and they say that, hey, Jesus, this woman was caught in the act of adultery, which means that she was being unfaithful to her husband. She was doing things with other guys that she should not have been. What the Pharisees do is they throw her in the middle of this crowd, and I can just imagine that in that moment, she felt so much guilt and shame. She probably felt angry because her problems were being exposed to everybody. Right? There was a big crowd around Jesus, and they just throw her in the middle of it. They confront Jesus so that they can trap him. They ask him, hey, Jesus, it's written in the law that anyone caught in the act of adultery is to be put to death. And so what they actually did is they would reach down, they grabbed these stones, and they were prepared to stone her to death. Because that's what the law said. If someone's caught in the act of adultery, she can be stoned to death. And so they asked Jesus, hey, Jesus, what do you think we should do? But listen to what Jesus says. These guys, they're saying that this woman deserves to be put to death because she's a sinner, because she's been caught in her sin. And Jesus says to them, you who are without sin, you throw the first stone. And what happens is, one by one, they begin to leave. They drop their stones that they intended to kill this woman with, and they walk away. And here's what I think happened in this story. I think that the Pharisees, they did what we do a lot, right? They shifted the focus onto someone else's shortcomings. They shifted the focus onto someone else's failures. Sometimes it's easier to point out the faults of everyone else around us than it is to deal with our own shortcomings, to deal with the areas where maybe we need to grow and be better. Maybe you've done this before. Maybe you failed a test, and instead of just owning up to it, just admitting that you didn't study the way you were supposed to, or you didn't pay attention in class, You blame the teacher for being a bad teacher. Or maybe you feel bad about failing the test, and so what you do is you go out and you try to make them feel dumb. Maybe some mornings you wake up and you look in the mirror and you don't like what you see. Or you're self-conscious about the way you look, you're self-conscious about the way you dress, the things you have, and so what you do is you go around throughout the day and you tear people down about how they look. Maybe for you, you tried out for a sports team and you didn't make the team, and instead of just owning up to the fact that you're disappointed and you wish you would have made the team, you just play it off as a joke. You act like you didn't care in the first place. I think that's exactly what these guys were doing in the story. It shocks me that they were willing to go into a crowd of people to Jesus and throw this woman in the center and draw all the attention to the sin that she had when they weren't perfect. They were trying to expose her as a sinner, as someone who didn't do what she was supposed to, as an awful person for her mistakes, when they themselves made mistakes. And this brings us to an important question tonight. Who or what are you standing for? The truth of the matter is, we're all facing insecurities. We all have something that we wish that we could change about ourselves. We all know the things that we could do better at. But the crazy thing is that in this moment, Jesus decided to take a stand for this woman. He decided that although the law said death, he would say grace and life. Think about this. At any given moment, at any given day, we can be any one of these three characters in the story. I mean, if we're really honest with ourselves. We can be like the woman who was feeling judgment and guilt for her sin because we had done things that we weren't supposed to do. We were feeling guilt and shame because we had sinned. But maybe like the woman, there are other people pointing it out to you and trying to make you feel guilty or shameful for your sin. Sometimes we can be like the Pharisee. We can be the people who are pointing out other people's sin. We can be the people putting other people down and drawing attention to their shortcomings and ignoring ours. But what I want you to do tonight is to make your goal of being like Jesus in the story. I want you to be like Jesus, who stands up for this woman. What Jesus said next to this woman is for you and is for me to hear as well. Regardless of whatever person you are in the story, what Jesus says next to her, it changes everything, and it's a big deal, and I think we all need to know it. He asks her a question. Where are your accusers? And she looks up and looks around, and she notices that they're all gone, and she says, there's no one here to accuse me. No one stayed to condemn me. And then Jesus says to her, and I do not condemn you either. Go, and from now on, sin no more. This statement that Jesus makes to this woman and that he makes to us means that we have an opportunity every single day to move on from who we used to be and step forward into who God is calling us to be. We have the opportunity to leave our mistakes and shortcomings in the past so that we can look forward to our Savior. We have the opportunity to take a stand every day so that the others around us can recognize this truth as well. And I believe that Jesus is passionate about grace and forgiveness for everybody, not just for the people who believe in him even. So my question for you tonight, Revolve, is this. Who are you standing for? Who is it that you need to take a stand for? Maybe you see someone at school who's being put down constantly. They're always getting picked on and people are trying to leave them out of stuff all the time. Maybe you see comments on a picture on Instagram or Twitter or Snapchat. What are you going to do about it? Because it's one thing to see a problem, it's something else to actually do something about it. And I think as Christians, we're called to actually do something about it. What's your stand going to be? There are people in this world, people at your school, maybe even people in your house who you interact with every single day, and you need to stand up for them. You need to love them. They need to know that God's grace and his forgiveness and love are for them too. It's for everybody. Stand up, reach out, and don't miss your chance to be something different. Maybe for you, if you're really honest, you're more a part of doing those things to people than having them done to you. Maybe you've been kind of a bully to people. Maybe you've treated them poorly. You said things about people and spread rumors about people that you shouldn't have. You treat people in a way to make yourself feel better. Regardless of wherever you find yourself, every single day you have a choice to stand and do something different. To be a light in the life of everybody around you. And I don't want you to miss it. There are a lot of people who need you to stand up for them, regardless of where you are right now. Whether you're a person who those things happen to a lot, or you're a person who does those things to others. Let's be big enough to drop all of these things at the feet of Jesus. Because the world needs you. The world needs to know about God's love and forgiveness, and you can show them what that looks like. And that's a big deal. And that should be something that we should all be trying to lean into. It's not about the things you've done in your past. It's about who God is asking you to be right now. There are people who need you to step up, to speak out, to move, to stand up for them, not to sit back and let the moment pass by. The challenge tonight is this: be bold and take a stand. The world needs you. God's grace and forgiveness is for every single person around us, not just the people who go to church. God's love is for everybody, which means that we need to treat everybody, all the people we come into contact with, respect and love. As you take your stand, the way that people recognize that you're a Christ follower is by the way that you love other people and by the way we love one another. My challenge for you this week is to pray this prayer: God, break my heart for what breaks yours. Give me eyes to see those around me who are hurting and the boldness to do something about it. That thing that we talked about, the thing that disgusts you, that thing that gives you a pit in your stomach, maybe that's a thing you need to take a stand for. God is calling you to be a light in this dark world. My question for you tonight is this: will you take a stand? Let's pray. Lord, we just thank you that we can meet with each other tonight. Even though we don't get to see one another in person, you still call us to be together and to connect. And I thank you for the fact that we live in a time where we can use the internet. And I pray that you'd help us to use it as an opportunity to connect to one another, to love each other, to take a stand for each other. Lord, we ask all of these things in your name. Amen. I just want to encourage you to take that challenge seriously, to pray that prayer, to ask God to break your heart for what breaks his, because if you pray that prayer, it'll take you from being a person who just sees problems, and it'll turn you into a person who does something about it. And I think that's what we're called to do as Christians. We're called to act out in love. I just want to encourage you now to not let it stop. I sent an email to your parents, and they have a PDF of all of the discussion questions that go with tonight's lesson. And what I want to encourage you to do is have a real, honest discussion with your parents about the different questions we have. See you later, guys.